and the Allston-Brighton District City Councilor. Today is Tuesday, March 6th, and we are here to review the contract between SEIU, Local 888, and the City of Boston. I'd like to remind folks that this hearing is being both broadcast live on Comcast 8 and RCN 82 and Verizon 1964, and streamed at boston.gov/city-council-TV. I'd like to encourage folks who have any electronic devices to silence them at this time. At the conclusion of the hearing, questions and answers, we will take public testimony. There's a sign-in sheet to my left by the door. We ask that you state your name, address, and any affiliation. I'd like to also, in order of their arrival, District 3 City Councilor Frank Baker, and the dockets regarding this contract are 0314 and 0315. 0314, message in order to reduce the FY18 appropriation for reserve for collective bargaining by $1,769,878 to provide funding for various departments for the FY18 increase within the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Boston and SEIU Local 888. 0315, message in order approving a supplemental appropriation of $1,769,878 for various departments for FY18 to cover cost items contained within the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Boston and the SEIU Local 888. The terms of the contracts are from October 1, 2016 through September 30th, 2017, and October 1st, 2017 through September 30th, 2020. The major provisions of the contracts include base wage increases of 2% effective the first pay period of January of each fiscal year. The agreements also include other benefits, including new steps beginning in July 2018. And with that, let me hand it over to Justin and Anne Marie. Thanks for coming down.
Great. Thank you, Councilor. Thank you for inviting us here to testify today on dockets 314 and 315. As you mentioned, they cover the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Boston and SEIU. The $1.7 million reserve draw will be distributed to over 20 departments, but mostly at the Police Department, Neighborhood Development, and BCYF. As you remember, the FY18 budget was passed with a $47 million aggregate amount in collective bargaining reserves for contracts completed throughout the year. This reserve draw is in addition to contracts that have been passed previously, like BTU, detectives, PhD nurses, and CENA. So far, the Council has approved 8 contracts this year. With the approval of this supplemental, the remaining balance of the FY18 collective bargaining reserve will be a bit over $16 million, about $16.2 million. With the completion of this contract, SEIU, the city, will have settled agreements with about 73% of the unionized employees. And I'll turn it over to Anne Marie to talk through any specifics of the contract, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. As you've indicated, the contract includes 2% wage increases for each of the years in January. It also includes additional steps that were added on at the end of the grids. In addition, similar to other agreements that we've reached over the course of this round of bargaining, it includes paid parental leave for all eligible employees, a uniform provision for those in the bargaining unit, and it also includes some changes to weekend differential pay in certain departments, consistent with or similar to what we've done in other groups. In addition, we clarified the 20-year rules, returning it to a promotional rule, which was the original intent of the program. And we did establish a cap on sick leave redemption, both for existing employees and new employee, consistent with what we've done with some other groups.
Thank you. Let me first ask, how many folks are in this bargaining unit?
It's about 1,000.
About 1,000. And what are some of the departments, just for the record, some of the departments?
The Department of Neighborhood Development, BCYF, Elderly Commission, the Police Department, Do It, and then many of the City Hall offices here have clerks and techs who work in the offices that are also members of SEIU.
Let me also commend you and the mayor and all your teams for negotiating consistent contracts that are fair to these workers. I do have a question, and he couldn't be here today, is Councilor Tim McCarthy, and it's actually a question that I've raised as well. I want to ask for the record, what is new in this contract, and why long-term employees who have spent their careers doing the right thing would lose sick time buyback rather than be grandfathered in? And again, we've seen this in at least a couple of contracts. Could you even say how many have negotiated this provision?
I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but it is consistent and similar to what we've done with a couple of the other groups, including some of the other larger groups like AFSCME also agreed to a cap on sick leave redemption. Right. And then some of our smaller groups, I think, have it. We're still in bargaining with a few other groups, but are looking to make the same reforms with them.
Right. Could you provide me with a list of who this provision would apply to and who it hasn't applied to with the current contracts? You know, again, I think, you know, if we're talking consistency, you know, we shouldn't make one class of employees different standards, especially when it comes to something that they've thought that they were earning for many years, and then, you know, only had a couple of months or whatever to
Yeah, we can definitely
adjust.
get you a list of which groups we've agreed to this with and which groups have not. I think across the board it's been presented, and it's a reform that we've tried to propose at each of the tables. There's been some slight variations on how it's been agreed to, and there are a few exceptions where it was not agreed to. There was a little bit of delay in its implementation, so that there was a couple months between the time of agreement and when it took effect, giving some folks who were close to retirement an opportunity to consider whether it was a good time for them to potentially cash in on the full amount that they've accrued. I think one of the other things is that it is still a benefit that is still available to people. There just now is a cap, but they still do have the right to take a significant portion of their sick leave at retirement.
Right. And I would say, going forward, is this going to be applied to new employees going forward as just part of their condition of employment? So
the new employees in this bargaining unit, when they come on, they will have a cap of 10 grand. Again, different contracts have different provisions, but it's very clear and separated out what the new employees will receive. Right. So yes, going forward, they will come on understanding what the cap is.
Okay. And I think my recollection is for years, some departments allow, you know, yearly buybacks, right? So if you didn't call in sick so many days in a year, the city would give you a week, like 5 days. Is that still part of this contract and others?
We've not, in this round of bargaining, we have not changed that with any of the groups. So any group that had that continues to have that.
Okay. Let me recognize that we have President of the Boston Municipal Research Bureau in the House, Sam Tyler, and I think Jen Springer should be here soon. I just wanted to acknowledge her as being very instrumental in these negotiations. Councilor Baker, you have any questions?
Thank you, Councilor Siomo. Sure. Good morning. Couple things. How many steps have been added? How many are there now, and then how many were added on top?
Generally speaking, 2 have been added, with the exception of BCYF. They had a smaller third step that was added, which was a request made because they had fewer steps to begin with than some of the other groups. And there actually is a slight variation in the number of steps that different pay scales had over the years, and that was a pre-existing circumstance. So we did try to make some more equality, I don't want to say equality, but more similar number of steps by adding a third to BCYF.
Okay. How long is the paid parental leave, and is it full pay?
So the paid parental leave is the same paid parental leave that was passed by the city council for exempt employees. So it's the 6 weeks, with the first 2 being 100%, the next 2 being 75%, and the final 2 being 50%.
So same plan?
That's correct. And the city is actually, similar to what we've done with other groups, retain the right to make any changes that were to be made to the exempt program would be implemented with all of the unionized groups that have
Okay.
reached agreement on this as well.
What's the 20-year rule?
It is a promotional rule so that an employee who in their 20th year of service with, generally speaking, the city, who is promoted into a new position of a higher grade is accelerated to the top step of that grade with that promotion.
Okay. And will you clarify the $10 rule?
That's correct. There was at least a practice that existed of when an employee is promoted, putting the 20-year rule to the side, where they go on the grid that exists. And it was commonly referred to as a $10 rule. It was unclear, was that $10 a day, $10 a week, $10 for the year? It's typically been $10 for the week, and so we just clarified that.
That's been clarified. And also the sick leave buyback, we have no idea how many people that affects, or?
We don't have the number of sort of people that affects or any savings that we attributed to that. I would say as a package with the Medical Leave Act and the wage increases and the new steps, it's generally part of a package that we try to balance out a little bit to be able to afford some of those new benefits that we're applying to the union.
And Justin, are there opportunities to go in there and if it's 2 people, if it's 3 people, is there an opportunity to go in and grandfather?
Not to my understanding. I think it's been ratified by the union.
Yeah,
It's already been ratified?
The union has ratified the agreement, and this provision is consistent with other agreements that had the same type of cap put in place.
No, I understand that, but, and I was I'm a city worker still, but I was,
Of course.
I was in a department for 25 years, and I watched the older guys in front of me,
Yep.
you know, lose, I watched them lose thousands of hours because they did the right thing. I think we should look at a way, Justin, to see how we can revisit this. If it's 2 people, I mean, you're punishing someone that's been here and done the right thing forever, for their 30 or however many years they've been here. And, I mean, city workers get a bad name, and we're gonna punish those city workers that have been exemplary employees. So I'd really like to get a look at that, especially who, like maybe a breakout of who it's affecting and how much it affects. So can you explain to me because we used to have, in the printing department, we had 15% of 100 hours. Basically, you can only cash in 3 weeks. And there were people there that had a year worth of time. And so can you explain to me what was it and what is it now?
It was a 30% cap to begin with, and so that amount has stayed.
So 30% on entire, so if you made, just to make the numbers easy, if you made 100,000, the most you could get would be 30,000.
That's correct, rough
I think it's
numbers.
30% of the hours that you had
Yeah.
accrued.
So 1,000
So now it would be
would be
capped.
300 hours.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. if
So you do
had a-
hours.
Yeah.
So if you had a whole year of service.
Yep.
It would basically be around $30,000. What is the cap now? What did we negotiate?
So $15,000 for existing employees and $10,000 for new employees who start after the contract was agreed upon.
So the difference would be the 30% minus the 15,000 would be what people could potentially have lost.
Okay, so,
But it depends on how many hours that specific individual has accrued. But we can certainly go back and.
yeah,
at
I
least
think,
find a list.
I really feel strongly about that we should look at that, because being a long-term city employee and to punish someone at the end of their career, and I understand it was negotiated and it's a little,
It's difficult. Yeah.
you know, like, I think, yes, unfair. I think people need to be cognizant of that. I mean, we're handing Revere Bowls out. They should get a Revere Bowl and be made whole for the time that they've been here. Okay, I've said enough on that. 20-year rule. Can you talk a little bit about the BCYF, the weekend differential?
Sure. It applies to employees who work over the weekend and it's an hourly rate, and it's an increase initially to 50 cents and then to $1 over the course of the contract, so that's an hourly increase for them.
So when they changed and they went to that weekend sort of, you know, that people were, their hours changed, was there not a differential in place there then, do you know?
I believe there was a previously existing differential, but this is an increase to it. And BCYF has, I know there was a change in hours earlier last year, but there had been BCYF coverage on the weekends even prior to that as well.
Okay, and I know you talked a little bit about who these workers are. Are they mostly people that are in offices and, do we know, do we have a sense of it, or
I think
like police department, who is in the police department? What are the
So
workers,
many of
what do
their
they do?
clerical, most of their clerical staff is in SEIU, as well as their call takers and including the 911 folks.
Oh, okay, so that's all, and what about D&D, same thing, administrative people, or?
The majority of D&D is actually within the SEIU bargaining unit.
Oh,
And most of them are obviously in the offices, but some of them
Offices,
do go out
clerks,
into
yeah.
the fields.
Okay. And it's 2% a year, retro, is there retro in this? Full
Back to-
retro?
Yeah, back to, I think the first date is January of last year.
Yeah, so they'll get a year and a couple months, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to emphasize what Councilor Baker said about the fairness of this. And again, for folks watching and for those in the chamber, the city council is precluded from entering into any kinds of negotiations. Our job is simply to review the contract and make sure that we have the funds to fund it. But having said that, I think going forward, you should at least try to give these employees a few months. Obviously, folks that are losing significant amounts of dollars because of the sick time they've accrued have been with the city a very long time. They may be nearing retirement age, most likely nearing retirement age. And, you know, maybe if you gave them an option, a several-month window to make a decision before it's enforced, some of them may choose to retire and grab that money that they've earned because, again, to the point where I'm not a big fan of changing the rules at any point during the game, but certainly not at the end of the game for some people. So I'd ask that you look at that going forward. And I understand your explanation is, you know, you're giving the new employees paid parental leave, and obviously that doesn't benefit these folks. So it's like, you know, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul in some form or fashion. So I just want in the spirit of fairness, I'd just like to have you guys look at that going forward. Could you talk just a little bit about the Housing Trust contribution and how that works?
So the Housing Trust was established a few rounds back, and it previously was a 5 cents per hour worked per employee in the bargaining unit, and we've doubled that to 10 cents per hour worked per employee. So the city makes a contribution, I believe it's on a monthly basis?
I think for the, so there's
Yeah.
a retro in here of about $41,000 for so far this year, and I think it's either taken out of the weekly paycheck, or not taken out of the weekly paycheck, but in addition to the weekly paycheck. But when it gets deposited, I have to double check on.
Yeah.
And could you, do you know how many folks have availed themselves of the Housing Trust, say, the past year or two?
We could get that information
Yeah,
from
that'd be great, because it's a great program, and I just want to make sure that people are availing themselves of that.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
talk about that. So what is the program? Is it like a $10,000 gift for down payment? Can you explain what the benefit is?
So the trust has various programs. There is a down payment program, and I believe last time I reviewed it, it was a $10,000 down payment. There are also other grants and loans that can be applied for home improvements. There's also emergency funds available for heating in the winter, and there's a rental program available as well for those who need to find rent in the city. Many of us know first, last can be difficult to come up with all that money at once, and so there's a benefit of that type as well.
Is SEIU the only union that participates in this?
SEIU has its own housing trust, and AFSCME has its own housing trust as well.
And are they similar?
They're very similar, yes.
Okay.
Similar programming.
Thank you.
Good, great. I think that concludes our questions. I have one person, I think, signed up, and it's a very old friend of mine, Vilma. Oh, there you are. Hi, Vilma. Come on up.
Good morning. Hi.
Morning.
My name is Vilma Valentin. I work at the Elderly Commission. Hi. The reason that we decide, a group of my office and all the people came, because I believe that it's going to be 4 people who's been affected by the percentage that they're going to have if they sick. And we feel that they've been punished to be here every day. So if it's only 4 people, I believe they should be grandfather. And that from now on, then we can give the information to the other people. Because, I mean, I'm not getting affected. I'm not retired yet. But my coworkers, it's 4 of them, you know, my friends that's going to be. And I don't think that is fair. I think they've been punished to be here every day.
Okay.
So that's my concern. So
How many years now, Vilma?
Huh?
How many years you been with the Elderly Commission?
I've been with the Elderly Commission 16 years, but I've been working for the city of Boston for 28 or 30 years
Yeah.
in different departments. So I will ask the lawyers and you to take that in consideration for the 4 people that is going to be affected.
Okay.
Okay?
Could you,
Can I ask a question, Velma?
Councilor
Are
Baker.
the 4 people in the elderly department?
No.
No.
They're not in the Elderly Department, no.
Okay.
is that 4 out of all the employees?
I know what's in the copy machine. That is Jerry. He's right here.
Yeah.
He's very close. He worked with us really close. I think it's another lady there, but I mean, I would like for you guys can take that in consideration and move it from now on.
Thank you, Velma.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Vilma.
You're very welcome.
Good to see you. Well, that concludes, anybody else wish to testify at this point? Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
Good morning. I'm Lorna Herron with the Elderly Commission. So as far as those folks that's going to be affected, the 4 folks that's going to be affected, as far as we know, it's 4. But if it's more, the one thing that I was thinking about is a resolution would be to red circle them in, so that doesn't affect the process that has already been put into place. One of the other things that you had spoke about was, that you had, Council Baker, that you had questioned about was how are they going to be, is this going to be retroed all the way back? No. Our contract expired in October and it'll be affecting in
Only to
January.
so
Yes,
you lose 3 months?
correct.
Is that right?
Yeah, that was what was negotiated with the union. Yeah.
Right.
I would also like to point out,
So is it
though-
a new start time?
It is
Are
not,
the
'cause-
dates changing in the contract?
So the dates of the contract are not changing, and last round, the wage increases took effect in January. So it's actually 1 year from the date they last received a raise is what we're retro to.
Okay.
So there actually is no sort of time where there's not sort of
A
a loss
gap.
of months.
Right, okay. Okay, good.
Jen Springler, she's supposed to be.
No, I recognized that she didn't make it.
Okay.
She didn't realize this would be this quick. Anyone else wish to testify? Oh, okay.
My name's Sonia Singh. I work for the assessing department. I am the steward there, and this is just a general testimony. So working for the assessing department, we have employees who are directly responsible for bringing income in the city. And I know in FY 2017, we brought in over $2 billion of property tax revenue into the city. And I just want to say that my employees have worked consistently and patiently for the past few years collecting the revenue, and they have directly observed the rising cost of housing firsthand while their wages have remained stagnant. And there has been very little complaint from my department. So being a steward, I just wanted to make sure they're getting what their peers are getting and getting what they deserve. And this is my first time being on the negotiating committee, and I have gone through many long meetings in the negotiating committee, and our lawyer, Jen Springer, and John have worked really hard to get us what we've been asking for. So I would like you to pass this through.
And we intend to. Thank you.
Thank you.
How many people are on your negotiating committee?
10 people were?
From your side?
From, yes.
And-
For 10 stewards, and then there were 3 representatives from SEIU.
Yeah,
And then Jen
okay.
was our lawyer, and John was another lawyer for us.
And who was negotiating from the city?
What city employees? There was myself,
No, on the side of the
Labor
administration.
relations.
there was Anne Marie, Liz, I don't remember the names of the other
Okay,
lawyers.
Thank you.
Oh, Gerald? Hi, Gerald. And Jen
Councilors.
Springer has arrived. Wanted to say hi, Jen. Yeah. Hi.
Councilors, how we doing? I'm Jerry Canelli. I work down at the Coffee Center. I've been down there since 1979. Feels like 1879. But I just thank the councilors and thanks my friends from the elderly. And I've been a union member since '79. I think was 285 at first before, and like Councilor Baker said, and Councilor Yam, you do the right thing all these years. You play the game. And back in the days, the old timers used to always say, like, don't abuse the sick time, because at the end, you're going to have this. And there's always an argument. People will say, no, you use the sick time, you get 100%, but you do the right thing. And basically, it's wrong. I think it's dishonorable. I think the key word is honor, and this is dishonorable.
Yeah, that's an ongoing, when I was in the printing department, there were guys that said, I'm using every minute of my time because then that way I know I get it. And then there were guys that, they don't want to get into their 60s or whatever
Yeah.
and need the time because they're sick, so. I don't know, it's about, I used my time, Jerry, when I went, but I knew I
I
was
know,
getting
pal.
laid off, so I used every
I know,
minute
I don't
of it.
blame you, but
Sorry, Sam.
But I just want to thank everybody, that's all, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Jerry. Anybody else?
Jen Springer.
Jen? Hi, Jen Springer. Come on up.
Good morning.
Morning.
Sorry to be late. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Jen Springer. I am the General Counsel and Director of Field Operations for SEIU Local 888. I am also a proud resident of the city, Ward 18, High Park. So first, I would like to say congratulations to Emery Noonan on being appointed Acting Director of Department of Labor Relations. I think just as a point of personal privilege, I think that's a great choice. She understands we butt heads and we certainly have our disagreements, but Emery understands the relation part of labor relations, and that's just so essential to this part of the world and this part of the work that we do. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I also just want to acknowledge and congratulate our members on this contract. That's what this is really all about. It's about the hardworking members who keep the city running. So I wanted to just make sure that you folks have a flavor of who those people are, what kind of work they do. They do some of the hardest, most important work in our city on the front lines to keep the city running. That includes folks we have from the elections department who make sure our elections run fairly and efficiently. That's an important job. We have folks from Boston Center Youth and Families that help keep our kids safe and occupied and keep the streets safe, lifeguards, youth workers, really the folks that you really need on the front lines to have a healthy city. We also have folks here from the elderly department. They take care of our elders, making sure they have services. And then we also have very hardworking members such as Christine from the Department of Neighborhood Development, who are the people on the ground making sure those 53,000 units of new housing actually come to fruition in our city, which is a great thing. So in addition, I don't want to leave out, we have our police department employees who answer 911 calls. So these are some of the most crucial jobs in our city, and I just think we should all congratulate and appreciate what they do, because that's what it's all about. So they've worked hard on this contract. They've waited a long time. So I would urge you to pass this contract today so that these folks can get the funding that they are due and that they have earned over time. These are always difficult contracts. This one was particularly difficult because we had forces within our own union that didn't want us to succeed. They wanted to use this as a political ploy in an election. But this group, our team, we just kept our heads down and said, we're going to do what's right no matter what. And what's right is getting this job done and getting a contract for our members, regardless of whether it costs us political points down the road. So that's what we did, because it's not about any one union or union head. It's about the workers. It's about the people. These are all people you see here who live in our city. They're not just employees. They're our neighbors. They're our friends. And they do a terrific job for the city. And I urge you to pass this contract for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
And I
Thank
can
you for
take
the work you do.
questions if you like.
Sure. No, I'm good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I,
Yes, of course.
if you can you delve into that political point a little bit? Like, what was going on? Are we allowed to ask that?
Yeah, we have an internal election that was going on for union president. So there were some folks trying to undermine our efforts to get this contract done, and
They didn't want to get it done because if it dragged out,
correct, to make it look like we weren't succeeding. And they even went so far as organizing a picket of the mayor's inauguration. Unfortunately, those folks narrowly won the election. So I've enjoyed my time here. So, and I'm proud of the work we've done.
Politics in City Hall.
Yeah, hey,
Believe it.
politics is rough. You guys know that,
Hard to
right?
believe.
But only point being that myself and the members of this bargaining team will always do the right thing, no matter what else is going on.
I'm glad you had it sounded like you had a good experience with Anne Marie.
Certainly.
I was on the negotiating committee last administration. I couldn't say it was a good experience. So that was nice to hear. Congratulations, Anne Marie.
Yes, deserved.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you,
That
gentlemen. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Jen. That concludes today's hearing. I will be reporting this out tomorrow's full council meeting favorably. This hearing's adjourned.